think there's some machines up ahead. Didn't think you'd want to miss out.
February 21st, 2023. I'm anxiously waiting for my PlayStation VR2. I step out the door just as the delivery worker walks up to my house. After confirming I'm the person it's for, he tells me, "Sorry, boss. I can't let you have this today."
It will be back tomorrow.
Are you sure it'll be back
Positive.
tomorrow?
Positive.
Yeah, so that happened. Anyway, tomorrow rolls around and I've got my fancy new PlayStation VR2. This video goes over the unboxing, setup, and some of the issues I encountered as well as how I solved them. I've used several VR headsets in the past, including the original Oculus Rift, Vive Pro Eye, and the original PlayStation VR. I currently use a Quest 2, both standalone and with my PC. I'll say up front that I'm really enjoying my time with PlayStation VR 2. Inside the packaging is a box that doubles as a storage for the PSVR 2, a smaller box housing a USB-C cable, earbuds with different tips, a manual, and since I bought the bundle, a Horizon Call of the Mountain digital code. Beneath that are the two Sense controllers, the headset, and, well, wouldn't you know it, that's it. There's no longer a need for an additional camera, breakout box, extra HDMI cables, or those PlayStation 3 Move controllers. All it takes is a single USB-C connection to the front of your PlayStation 5. The new VR2 uses 4 cameras for inside-out tracking. The scope houses a power button underneath, as well as a microphone and function button. Sadly, no more volume rocker. It also has a wheel to move the lenses back and forth, which is a nice upgrade from the digital IPD adjustment from PlayStation VR 1. IPD is the distance between your pupils. There is also now an accordion-like rubber face mask that gently blocks all light from coming in. The headband features a familiar ratcheting lock system, as well as spots to place the included earbuds. With regards to the controllers, the Quest 2 actually shines in this regard, where it has extremely long battery life. Where the VR2 supersedes the Quest 2 controllers is in having a much better joystick. The trigger features adaptive resistance. The haptic feedback in the controllers were also really nice compared to my Quest 2, but maybe not as pronounced as I was expecting them to be. Although I suppose that's part of the trade-off in terms of battery life, which currently to me has been about 4 to 6 hours, and I think that will also vary depending on which games you play that use the adaptive triggers and the haptic rumble. After plugging it into your PS5, press the power button and you'll feel it rumble. After the headset gets an update, you do the same with each of the controllers. In order to get the best clarity out of the system, you not only want to bring the scope forward and back using the button on top, but tilt and angle the headset on your head until you hit what is called the sweet spot, where your eyes can see the most out of a lens. The eye tracking setup was also really easy, although the level of brightness that the PSVR 2 is capable of was actually a bit painful when it went all white and had me track the dots around the screen. Then I finally ran into some actual issues. You see, I'm in a small bedroom with white walls, which aren't very good for tracking. On top of which, this is Sony's first inside-out VR headset. By comparison, the Quest 2, and Quest Pro have been out on the market for years, giving them a substantially larger amount of users to learn from and update their tracking solution. The way I solved this was simply to hang some of the posters back up on my walls that I had before, and tracking was able to complete. You can also set a temporary seated boundary, although I found that this was a bit limiting when I would reach out, causing the invisible red rings to appear to warn me that I'm going beyond the play area. Setting up a full room play space actually works both for sitting and standing, as well as for minimal room scale. Now unfortunately the controller shipped in a very low battery state, so the first thing I booted up was Gran Turismo 7. At first, I was a little confused because everything was in the 2D cinematic mode where you're basically looking at a large TV floating in a void. However, once I got into a race, I was immediately put into a virtual car racing around a track that felt way more real than I'd ever had before. Moments later, I was also reminded that the headset has a built-in rumble motor as I collided with another car and then into the wall. In terms of comfort, I would still say the PlayStation VR 1 is probably the most comfortable VR headset I've ever used. The PSVR 2 is no slouch either, but the new rubber seems to put a little bit more pressure on my forehead and the back of my head than I recall ever experiencing before. But it's nothing like the off-weight pressure of using a Quest 2 with a default strap, or even the Quest 2 that I have with accessories that add balance to the back, but still weigh me down and leave a large impression on my face. My head's also a bit of an odd shape, and I noticed the back of the headset would actually slip up a little bit, which would make me fall out of that sweet spot. But since then, I've tried a beanie, and I've also used headbands, all of which work to basically eliminate this issue. I also discovered that the audio jack at the back of the headset did not like the shape of my head, because any sort of cable that I would connect there that was a bit long would dig into the back of my skull. And while I could use a wireless dongle on my PS5, I wanted to use a wire so that the wireless dongle could actually work on my PC, allowing me to hear alerts and my chat to hear me when I live stream. Luckily, after ordering a few different cables, I found one that comes out at a right angle and does not dig into the back of my head. Speaking of live streaming, it appears that, at least for the moment, there is no way to see text chat while streaming direct from the PS5, leaving us only with the annoying text-to-speech solution, which kind of breaks immersion far more than checking messages when you want. I feel like this is actually counter to what Sony wants in terms of marketing the PSVR2, where having the ability to funnel in either Twitch or YouTube chat would be a great feature, especially for people like me who use a computer to stream their video games via capture card. Now, the biggest complaint that I've seen going around, and that is the effect of Mura, and can be seen as sort of like a graininess inside of the headset. For me, it's not really that noticeable unless I go looking for it, and lowering the brightness of the screen actually reduced this effect. And as for the lenses, they are the Fresnel variety, which means that you might encounter some minor God rays, but they're used here so that they can actually achieve the high brightness and pure blacks without drastically increasing the price, and also allow for a larger FOV than we currently see with pancake lenses. This is by far the darkest and brightest headset I've ever used, and allows for far more vivid and varied color to come through. So, like I mentioned before, head rumble. That's actually something amazing, because not only does it give you another sensation, headset rumble like this can alleviate motion sickness by matching some of the movement that you're experiencing in game. Now, I'm not sure how effectively this is being used yet, but there's tons of research that you can look into if you're interested. I want to stress that if you use VR and begin to feel sick, that moment you should take off the headset. You might not even be able to play the rest of the day, and that's okay. VR legs are a very real thing, and not every single person can achieve it. In fact, I'm actually a bit surprised that PlayStation doesn't start you off with some sort of easing into the VR world, which I know people who are used to it don't need, but newcomers to VR who are thrown into something like Gran Turismo 7 or even Horizon Call of the Mountain might experience VR sickness and not know how to deal with it. So eye tracking is kind of an amazing feature that a lot of people weren't expecting in the PlayStation VR 2. Not only does it mean that you can do things like look at a menu and have it highlighted for you, or aim a grenade with your vision, but it also means that games running on PS5 can use eye-tracked foveated rendering. So because the PS5 can track what you're looking at, that portion of the screen will look as best as possible, while the surrounding areas will lose things like resolution, effects, and generally don't need to be rendered as high a quality because you will never really notice if it's done correctly. And the Dark Pictures Switchback VR takes a cue from Doctor Who's Weeping Angels, which don't move unless you blink, which is terrifying, and apparently they have a level in their game which is kind of a follow-up to Until Dawn Rush of Blood from PSVR 1, where if you blink, the mannequins in the room will move. So don't blink and you should theoretically be okay. So yeah, those are my first impressions of the PlayStation VR 2. I wanted to get a bit more into the launch games, but this video is already getting a little longer than I anticipated. My existing library is only so big, but it consists of all new games, ports from the PSVR 1 that were free, some that had an upgrade path, as well as ports from the PC and Quest. I've been Multimoo, and that's my first look at the PlayStation VR 2. I'm quite happy with it so far, and I can only see things improving with future updates to the firmware and software. The real question is, how will Sony support this headset going forward? A decent amount of the PlayStation studios have actual VR experience, and I would love for them to port not only the PC games like Half-Life Alyx that everyone wants, but prior PSVR 1 titles like Wipeout Omega Collection, Astrobot Rescue Mission, Blood and Truth, and many others. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more from the channel. I've been Multimoo. Thanks for watching.
Take it.